Testing. 1, 2, 3, testing.
One, two, testing, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing.
please. Thank you, IT. Thanks for that. And good evening, members, and anyone that's listening online. We have a very packed agenda tonight, and I just want to try to get through it all as quickly as we possibly can. Members, just before we make a start, if I can just take a few moments to pass on our condolences as a council to Councillor Flaherty's mother-in-law. She passed away after a lengthy illness, and to her and her husband Wayne, we want to pass on our sincere sympathies to them. Even though it has been a lengthy illness, it's still sad, very, very sad, and a difficult time for families, regardless of the illness that they had been suffering. So Councillor Flaherty and her husband Wayne, and the wider family circle, on behalf of the council, we pass on our sincere sympathies. Councillor O'Hanlon has also asked to speak on the death of Canon John McGearney. Do you want to start speaking, Councillor O'Hanlon?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. And before I begin, can I be associated with your sympathies to Councillor Flaherty and her family on the passing of her mother-in-law? Yes, Lord Mayor, just in recent days, Canon John McKeagney has passed away. Canon John was a minister at St Mark's Church of Ireland in Armagh for 23 years, and he's remembered with immense affection by the people of his adopted city. He was very passionate about Armagh and did a lot of good work across the community and across the churches during his time with us. In latter years, he retired to live in Portrush, but he never lost his affection for Armagh, and for that reason, he's been brought home, as it were, to Armagh tomorrow for his funeral service. Canon John was also a very enthusiastic supporter of the railways, and I know in a recent time he welcomed the publication of the Strategic Rail Review and hoped to see the day whenever the train was returned to Armagh. But look, someone else had better plans for him. And as I said, tomorrow is his funeral. And can I pass on my sympathies to his son Patrick, daughter Ruth, and his partner Karen.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. Alderman Kennedy, do you want to come in now with regards to your opening announcement? Yes, go on ahead. You work.
Councillor O'Hanlon made regarding Reverend McKeagney in Armagh a very good servant. He had been for the community for nearly a lifetime, and I pass on our condolences. And just there's a little thing in the opening announcement, sir, for Red Rock LOL 788. I had requested that back in April, so it's already done.
Alderman Wilson.
Yes, simply just to be associated with the remarks, Councillor O'Hanlon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Wilson and Alderman Kennedy and Councillor O'Hanlon. Members, first item on the agenda then is apologies, and I have received apology from Councillor Flaherty. Is there any more apologies from the floor? Don't see any lights on, members, so I'm just going to, oh, sorry, Alderman Burns.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There's an apology from Councillor Flaherty.
Right. Thank you, Alderman Burns. Members, just before we move into agenda item 2, I want to welcome along tonight a group of young people from the Lurgan Youth Annex. Now, some of the members met them just before they went down to have tea. So I want to welcome Andrew, who's the youth leader, and Kessie, who's the youth leader, Oliver, Lloyd, Poppy, Chloe, and Joel. So they're going to spend a little bit of time with us tonight, watching how the goings on of a council meeting. So welcome to you all, and I hope you enjoy what's coming up. Okay, thank you. Agenda item 2 then, members, could I have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes of the council meeting held on the 29th of August? Thank you, Councillor Mulholland, proposed by, and have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Alexander. Members, are we all agreed to adopt the recommendations contained within the council minutes? I don't hear any dissenting voices, so I will move on to, did I hear somebody? No. Agenda item 2.2. Again, could I have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes of the special council meeting held on the 18th of September, please? Okay, there was more than me at the meeting, so hopefully. Councillor Savage, thank you, and Councillor Ratcliffe, thank you for that, members. And again, members, are we all agreed to adopt the recommendations contained within the council minutes? Agreed. Thank you, members. Okay, agenda item number 3 then, declarations of interest. Is there anyone wants to declare prior to coming into the housing executive presentation in advance? Councillor O'Dowd. Oh, I'll call you in now. Okay.
I would just like to say I'm actually a member of the Housing Council in Belfast. Just want to put that in the record, please. Mayor.
Okay. No. No. Okay, thank you, Councillor O'Dowd. Anybody else? I don't see any more lights or indication online. So, members, I'm going to hand over to, let me see who we have here tonight from the Housing Executive. Attending in person, we have Grania. If you can just indicate, Grania, yes, John and Sinead. And members, you've all received this presentation in advance. So the Housing Executive are aware that there's a heavy schedule tonight and that there is going to be a 10-minute presentation. Is it yourself, Grania, is starting off? Yes. And Grania, I will notify you whenever you've about a minute or so left, and we can round that up. Okay. So, oh, it's been over to yourself then. Thanks, Grania.
The opportunity to present this evening. I will talk you through our housing investment plan, and we have met before. I was here at this time last year and presenting on the plan, and really what I will spend a little bit of time on this evening, and I'm sure you'll have questions, is first of all the scale and the nature of our investment in the council, across the council, not just in our own homes as a public landlord, but also in a range of programmes that relate to public services more generally. I suppose the first point I will always make is the importance of our partnership together. So we are a community planning partner. We take that responsibility very seriously. I'm very grateful to you as elected members and to officers for the amount of work that they do working closely with us in terms of ensuring that we deliver each other's objectives, whether it's in terms of placemaking, and certainly our responsibility to you is to ensure that we work alongside you delivering for the place plan for Armagh City and the wider community plans for the area. So very grateful for the support of council members and officers in doing so. Just to start on the numbers, and I suppose I always say housing is about numbers. So in terms of this particular council area and the number of households, just over 84,000 households across the borough, and so our responsibility in terms of providing public services to those households, I'll talk you through. But also the Housing Executive, as you know, is a public landlord, so we manage just over 7,300 homes locally, and the scale of work that comes with that. I want to talk a little bit about last year. So our plan that I'll present to you this evening looks back to last year, the last financial year, and also forward to what's coming. Last year we invested just over 76 million in the borough, and that's split across about 39 million in housing benefit. And of course that invests heavily in the area, whether it's in the private rented sector or more generally in public and social housing, but also across our own stock, a range of programmes, whether it's, for example, the retrofit programme. When I was here last year, we talked about that programme that has been very successful locally in helping to create more energy efficient homes, right through to homelessness services, affordable warmth, and a range of other programmes, including supporting people, which is the housing support services, so helping people to live independently in their homes. You'll also see a significant level of investment in our new build programme last year, which I'll come on to, and some of the some of the deliverables there and what that means for the waiting list locally, which I'm sure you'll be keen to hear. In terms of the year that we're currently in, this is our projected spend. Housing benefit spend will stay roughly the same at around about 39 million. But this is the projected spend across those other areas. I haven't included the new build programme. We don't cover those figures until the year has ended. But essentially a range of works being planned across the area. And I am very conscious, because we talked about it, we talk about it lots actually, that this is an area where there has been significant slippage in some of our programmes. And so really our focus, and you may have seen some of the press coverage today, is about ensuring now through our contracts that we are eating into that backlog, that we're making up as much of the ground as we possibly can in terms of planned maintenance of our homes, response maintenance, and of course making sure that we're meeting our obligations to the people that we serve in terms of maintenance. We're also very focused on ensuring that investment in supporting people stays as high as we can possibly keep it. There's still a gap between demand and supply for housing services, housing support services. You will know that, I'm sure you hear that regularly, but we're working very hard to maintain that. And of course, and I'll come on to it, the need for a focus on homelessness services and temporary accommodation provision. I just want to touch on those two programmes. Affordable Warmth, a really, really important programme, and that last year a spend of about 16 million across Northern Ireland, and as you'll see, just 1.85 million invested in 342 properties. That's a really important programme, and I'm delighted that that capital spend will continue this year. However, the boiler replacement scheme, we bid for funding for that to the department. We were unsuccessful, so very unfortunately the boiler replacement scheme is now paused this year, and we're unable to invest and replace boilers in that. The Affordable Warmth scheme is, however, remains open, and transfer of responsibilities across to the Housing Executive is underway and has taken place. I'm happy to take questions on either of those. In terms of waiting list figures, and this is really important, as you know, we continue to see a very high level of housing stress, both in terms of the number of people on the waiting list, and part of that is down to the fact that we simply just do not have enough social housing, whether it's in our own stock, and you see our allocations quite flat there. So that shows that people are staying in their homes, they're not moving, there's far less churn than there would have been once upon a time, and also we're not able to bring forward as much social housing as to meet need. As you know, the Housing Executive doesn't build itself. We commission the new build programme from housing associations, and I'll touch on just some of that and what we're delivering locally. I think probably the big change in the last couple of years is the amount of people being placed in temporary accommodation, and I hardly need to tell you, because you will be seeing this coming forward in terms of your own constituency work. So since the pandemic meant that a number of people who had informal sharing arrangements, those sharing arrangements came to an end very, very quickly when the pandemic hit. That meant that the number of temporary accommodation placements across Northern Ireland went from about 3,000 to about 9,000 a year in about a 2-year period. So a really, really dramatic increase in the scale and nature of temporary accommodation. That has continued to grow. So we are now seeing larger numbers of people coming to us because they're losing tenancies in the private rented sector. And that's either because landlords are leaving the sector or rents are becoming too high. So we have a perfect storm in terms of housing need and the need for temporary accommodation. I just thought I'd show you just some of the figures that we are spending and will spend this year and last year on temporary accommodation provision. So last year we spent about 600,000 on temporary accommodation locally. That's a really unusual figure for this council area. We would not normally be in the need to lease as much temporary accommodation as we are, and you can see the budget figures for Northern Ireland more generally. And again, happy to discuss that further under questions. On a more positive note, I have to say, alongside that, working closely with yourselves as the planning authority, I have to say we've seen a much more active programme of new builds. So right now, at the end of the year, we have exceeded the number of starts against the 5-year plan programme. So that's good news for this council area. It's very good news for people on the waiting list. And I think it's testament to our partnership as the Housing Authority and the Planning Authority. At the end of March, there were 99 new social homes under construction. But you can see the level of housing needs. We need to keep going, and we need that programme to continue. And I'm very happy, and colleagues are here to talk about the work that we're doing locally to ensure we do that. But really, really pleased to see that we've collectively exceeded those starts against against the 5-year target, and that bodes well for the future. And you can see just in front of you just a couple of photos of some of the new build, really high quality, very good partnerships with housing associations, and just the importance of ensuring that people have the right homes in the right place to meet housing need. I wanted to mention, while I'm here, discretionary housing payments. And this is, as you know, a payment that is available to some households to top up the cost of their rent in certain circumstances. Effectively, it's an emergency payment. It is a finite funding pot. We have seen a significant increase in the number of people come forward to access discretionary housing payments. You won't be surprised to hear that, given the cost of living increases. So we have had to work hard essentially to spread the demand essentially for that payments, and we've made some changes recently in terms of the total amount of discretionary housing payment that's available to households, and that's really to make sure that we spread availability of the programme of the fund as much as we can. Otherwise, we would have had to close it towards the end of this calendar year to new applications. So I'm happy to take questions on that, but some of you will be asked around discretionary housing payments, and please do send members of the public to us if you have any questions at all in relation to DHP. Final couple of slides, Lord Mayor, on those housing challenges that we are collectively facing. As I said, very large numbers of placements and temporary accommodation. That won't be a surprise to some of you. But what is really worrying is our level of reliance on non-standard accommodation. So in other words, hotels and bed and breakfasts. And to be really, really clear, nobody in the housing executive wants to be placing people in hotels and bed and breakfasts. That's not our job as housing professionals. We want to be placing people in the right homes and suitable accommodation. We will only do that in exceptional circumstances where there is no other accommodation available. But you can see the scale of need that is coming our way. I hope we will be able to work through that. We have a number of options coming through, and we certainly have increased our supply of temporary accommodation over the last number of years, but happy to take questions on that. You will have questions, I'm sure, on our plan programme, our investment programme. I'm happy to just take that at the end in the interest of time. So I think final points from us are, there are a number of opportunities. The fact that we have invested heavily in retrofit programmes is a really good news story for people locally who are facing into the winter, much more focus on energy efficiency, which I'm really pleased to see. We have started £250 million worth of new works this autumn. And again, that gives us now an opportunity to eat into some of that backlog that has been built up since the pandemic. So that's very good news. And it's a competitive environment now for the construction industry. So that bodes well for contractors locally, but also subcontractors. And that's a very good news story. So look, I'll finish there in the interest of time and giving everyone the opportunity to ask questions. My colleagues, John McCartan, who you know, and Sinead Collins are here as well. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Grania, you're amazing. I would say you've never talked as quick in your life.
Last year when I was here.
I do genuinely really appreciate you trying to condense as much information, because it's a huge remit within the housing executive. And we have got a number of questions from the floor. And the first one is, the lights are really coming on now. Councillor Hockingham. Okay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Grania, for your presentation. Indeed, it was a heck of a lot of information you went through very, very quickly, so thank you. I'll start with the positives as I see them. I think, firstly, Sinead and John in particular, thank you for all your work over the past year. I know I've phoned you at unreasonable times, sometimes to get answers to questions, and you've always been very, very helpful. Jackie McIlernan and Colin Baker, who would cover North Lurgan, probably wider, but they would be two officers that I would go to have been absolutely excellent over the past year, and they continue to be. So I think if you're going to criticise, it's always good to point out what works well, and those two officers in particular have been fantastic. I think there was a very successful fun day actually recently that the Housing Executive supported and the Lord Mayor attended in North Lurgan. So again, working with the community has been very, very positive. That being said, I think our presentation tonight, certainly in respect to North Lurgan in particular, the area that I would represent, the social housing need, I think every single year when this HIP report comes to the council, North Lurgan is at the top of the charts, and it's somewhere we don't want to be. That being said, I know from speaking to yourself, Sinead, and different people over the years, it's not straightforward. There are no simple answers, but I would like some information about any plans you have or any thoughts you have regarding the high numbers. I mean, 248 probably isn't, well, it isn't a true reflection, because the amount of people who just feel they can't even apply because there's just no point. And housing, I mean, I'm preaching the converted, housing is fundamental for communities to thrive. And we do need help. One area in particular is the old Clendinning site. There was a meeting again today with council officers about the antisocial behaviour on there. Well, it's not your land, I suppose it sticks out as a sore thumb in the area where there is such a high social housing need. And while I don't particularly need you to speak on that one, because it is privately owned, I would just like your thoughts on how you would approach dealing the high social housing need in that area. Thank you.
If I just, thank you. So if I just comment generally, and I'll ask Sinead then to come in on the specifics. Yes, I mean, it is across the piece. It is our role to assess housing need, and we have a obligation to ensure that we present that to, when we make it publicly available, and we present it to the department when we're putting the programme together. And so we make an assessment of the total amount of housing need just at a local level. Is presented to the department on an annual basis when they decide how much budget is set aside for new build social housing. This year there has been, as you know, a very, very difficult budget, and we will probably end the year somewhere between 20 and 25% fewer homes built than we recommended. Okay, and so that makes this issue more difficult, I'm afraid. That said, our role is to identify housing need where it exists, to present that in a commissioning prospectus to housing associations, to strongly encourage them to identify land in those areas of acute housing need. And you can see Armagh have been very active locally, but 74 homes locally in the North Lurgan area. That said, you can do the numbers and you can see the gap that exists. So we will continue to, first of all, make the case through our statutory housing assessment. We'll undertake needs assessments where we can. We'll work very closely with associations to encourage them to bring land forward, and anything else that we can do, either as a landlord ourselves or as a strategic housing authority, we certainly will do. So we're not taking our eyes off this. This remains an absolute priority. Sinead, is there anything you'd like to add that I've obviously forgotten?
No, just to add that North Lurgan is an area of priority for us. Obviously, it's the area with the house need across this council area. As you said, the 5-year projected need at March 2023 was 248 units, 602 applicants in the waiting list, 403 in housing stress, and only 31 allocations over the past year. So we recognise it's an area that needs an addition of supply. The private market is very active in North Lurgan, and we have received a large number of proposals for consideration over the past year, and we've taken each one of those really seriously. Need isn't uniform across North Lurgan, and the location of any new build scheme is of primary importance. A lot of proposals have been apartment heavy, so we've had a lot of negotiations with associations to try and revise that housing mix. Our priority is for 2 and 3 bedroom houses, and that's what we're really pushing for. But in addition to the proposals we've received, we are also due to undertake a site investigation study for North Lurgan next year, which will focus on all available lands across that area and any possible development opportunities that we can encourage housing associations to take up. And as Grania said, we will publish and highlight that need in the commission prospectus. And also just continue to highlight the scale of the need with council planners as they put together their the draft plan strategy in the new local development plan. That'll be hugely important as well.
Thank you. Content, Councillor Hockey, and that's good. Alderman Greenfield.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Grania, for your report. Just a couple of things I just wanted to ask about. You mentioned there at the end about the new contracts being issued today and 252 million. I think it's somewhere in the region of 9,000 bathrooms, 5,000 kitchens and 6,500 windows across, which is fantastic. But already today, my phone rang a couple of times with people wondering when will that transfer and late here. Do you have any idea of many homes this will benefit in our area at this time? What sort of value that is to our area, and many homes will actually be benefiting? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, so so the announcement today of 252 million is really welcome. It follows an 18-month to 2-year period of, I mean, really unprecedented inflation, as we all know. And last year we took a really difficult decision to allow 10 contractors to walk away from contracts. The reason that was difficult was because they were contractors who were legally bound by those contracts to deliver them. Some of the contracts, some of the works were on site. And, you know, the recommendation I made to the board, which the board accepted, was not to pursue those contractors in the courts. Quite frankly, if we'd done that, we'd be doing that instead of doing what we're doing now, which is re-tendering the work. But it has meant the new works are more expensive because we effectively have now had to make up the difference in terms of meeting the cost of new works. I still think it's worth it. It was the right decision for tenants. I think tenants wouldn't have supported, quite frankly, further delays because we've already had the pandemic to respond to. So when we put our programme together, we look at, we take a worst first approach. In other words, we look at those homes most in need of investment. And then we build that programme up from the most local level. So every local manager will speak to our programme teams and we'll put that together. So I'll probably ask John just to comment a little bit on local programmes here, but just to say, every focus that we will, you know, everything that we can possibly do this year in terms of eating into backlog, because what I don't want to do is leave, just because those numbers are so big. 252 million is a huge amount of money. And I've been very clear to date that this will not eat into all the backlog. You know, we have a huge investment need in our stock. It's an aging stock. So I'm very pleased with where we've gotten to, but it is not going to be the answer, I'm afraid, to every problem. We will still have to go back out to the market next year and keep that work coming. So John, you can.
Yeah, I can give a few of the local figures here. Two of the big ones are BKR, which is your bathroom, kitchen and rewires. So there's going to be 3 schemes in the financial year of 230 units. And there's a bathroom scheme under the same contract with 83 units. So that will be starting very, very quickly. They'll be rolled out. And then there'll be other programs and schemes in the subsequent years, but that's to start them making that inroad immediately and quickly. On the schemes we have heating contracts that will be going on. We have doors progressing. We have ECM schemes. That's the external works. There's a bit of a delay with them because there was a number of just procurement issues, but that's being given priority at that procurement. So it is. So we would hope to have a number of procurement contracts out around the ECM works as well, very, very quickly.
Thank you, Councillor Ian Wilson.
And thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a question, I'm sure I've been asked this, I think when you were here last year, as regards Chestnut Place and Banbridge, have we any timescales or when it's going to be demolished and redeveloped? Have any progress on that? Thank you.
Chestnut Place. Oh, sorry. I'm familiar with Chestnut Place. Yes, the demolition of that has just been approved. So, as you know, before any demolition, there's a lot of additional work that need to go into place. You have to address services, make sure they're disconnected, there are asbestos checks, and that's all to be done. So, I'm aware of the condition of them, and they've got quite dilapidated, and they're an eyesore on what would be a main arterial route. So, approval has now been given to proceed with the demolition.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and like others, just want to start off by thanking all the local staff right across the borough. Have always been very helpful in progressing bits of casework, either resolving issues or if they're not able to sort them out, providing information background the issue, which resolves tensions and things like that. Unfortunately, though, every year when an Northern Ireland Housing Executive present to Council, I raise the issue of the growing amount of paramilitary paraphernalia on their properties in the borough and in Lurgan in particular. And unfortunately, that growth has continued. Such flags, facades and murals cause detrimental harm to residents, and the continued lack of action on the removal only emboldens those who seek to mark territory and control communities. For example, earlier this year, a young mother and her child were intimidated from a housing executive property because of their religious background. Sure, we'd all agree that's completely unacceptable. Senior Northern Ireland housing executive officials need to get a grip of the situation in Lurgan and elsewhere by taking a proactive approach to remove these relics of the past and ensure that all areas are safe for people of all backgrounds. Therefore, Lord Mayor, what I would like to ask is, In the last 12 months, would the housing executive officials be able to outline what actions they have taken to tackle the scourge of paramilitary paraphernalia in this borough? I'd like that answered. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I give a general comment and then John can cover maybe the action we've taken locally, I suppose just to put on the record and be very clear from my point of view as a public official and as somebody who runs a public landlord, you know, any activity that is harming our tenants is something that we take, and the wider community is something that we take very, very seriously. And we do that as a landlord on a day and daily basis. I'm also very, very clear of my obligations and the obligations of our organisation in relation to how we manage the properties that we're responsible for and the wider spaces around those properties. It is an area of absolute priority for the organisation. And we are also very conscious of our obligations under the Good Relations Duty of the Northern Ireland Act. And we're also very conscious of our wider legal obligations. So that is a fact, and that's work that we undertake and resource quite clearly as an organisation. I'm very happy to correspond beyond today and beyond this evening and to set out exactly what we do locally in order to do that. But John, I'm happy for you to, if you're content, to just talk about some of the issues locally.
Okay. Yeah, we're familiar that there was a number of local incidents that got high prominence. Certainly wasn't reflective of the local communities in which they happened. But we engage on a number of levels. We have a good relations officer who works on the ground with the various communities. We have a community structure that we engage with various communities involved. And in a number of cases within the area, we have taken in, we have engaged TIDES, which is an independent body, which again works with communities, works with them in terms of where they're at, engages with the issues and the various agencies within the local community. So that is all going on in the background. Sometimes it can be 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. So it can, but we're committed to working with communities, trying to ensure that they're safe communities that people can live and thrive in, and that work will continue. A lot of it does go on in the background on scene, but it is going on.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Grania. And finally, Alderman Barr.
Thank you very much, Madam Lord Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation. It was just sorry, could you give me some information on the affordable worth home scheme has now moved under the remit of the housing executive. So wondering, could you explain sort of what additional measures that these are going to bring to the table, and indeed across Northern Ireland, but obviously looking to know what sort of ABC Council is going to sort of get in terms of finances and what, just an overall picture, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Very happy to comment on that. So the affordable warmth scheme up to last month effectively was a scheme that was run jointly between councils and the Northern Ireland Housing Executive. And essentially how it worked was that applicants would come to councils and councils would commence the application and would refer that application across to the housing executive. We would take it from there and so on and do the assessment in this, of the home. The Department for Communities took the decision to turn this into a single provider scheme. So to reduce first of all, the targeting. So it was an area-based approach, so targeted to specific types of properties in specific areas where people were most likely to be fuel poor. So they reduced the targeting and they took the decision then that the housing executive would have overall responsibility. So from the first point of contact from the applicant right through to the completion of the scheme. We've taken that on at the request of the department. It was all happened quite quickly. I think a number of issues arose, I think mostly down to capital requirements. So this is a very tough year in terms of budget. So we were asked to take that on by the department. In terms of what it means for councils, I think the most important thing from my point of view is that we continue to work really closely with yourselves in terms of making sure that the customer doesn't notice too much of a change. And so we have been, and very grateful to councils across all 11 councils working very closely with you so that we can provide you with advice so that you know who you need to come to within the housing executive should an applicant come to you. First of all, to make it as seamless a process as possible for applicants. There isn't additional funding, I'm afraid, to go along with this. I think the scheme is still really pressured this year. We're working very, very effectively to ensure that applicants in the system that we're able to meet their needs. And I think once we get through the current level of applications and the current level of demand, we will start to understand what that means in the longer term. But just to give you an example, I mean, we are getting hundreds of calls on a daily basis from households who are interested in affordable warmth. We have, as you know, and I'm very happy to furnish you with more information, we have an independent energy advice service in the housing executive. So anybody, any member of the public who has need for energy advice can call us. We have energy advisors working really hard and really effectively. We're going into the winter period, and this is a pressured fund, and I'm grateful for your question. As I say, I hope at the end of this, the customer will still see this as a seamless application process, though I think both our organisations, councils and the housing sector, had to move quickly to respond to quite a change.
Are you looking back in again? Alderman Martin, can you make it brief? Thank you.
Thank you for letting me back in, Madam Lord Mayor. Just on that, can councillors referral or is it self-referral? Thank you.
So yeah, so no, it's a self-referral now to the housing executive directly. But again, I mean, you know, I think very, very happy, and I hope we have done this anyway. But I'm happy to follow up if you'd like to encourage anyone to contact the Energy Advice Service. We're very pleased to receive them. But no, each individual applicant now has to refer themselves, essentially come forward to us. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Grania, John and Sinead, can I thank you again for coming in? And I mean, it's a huge remit and there's so many questions, but I mean, members know they have the contact numbers and we can contact you directly. So thank you again for coming in and for all of that information. Okay. Members, agenda item 5.1, committee minutes of the environmental services. Could Councillor Hockian, are you content to propose that? And Alderman Barry, are you content to second? Yes, thank you. Councillor McClellan, you have indicated.
Yes, Lord Mayor, thank you for letting me in, and it's under ES 2312 and it's concerning brown bins. I'm not sure other members, but certainly quite a few constituents have approached me asking for replacement brown bins over the summer there. And the issue seems to be that they're cracking or splitting, and this results in householders receiving a will not empty anymore type of notice until there's a replacement got. And I suppose my ask is that officers could bring a report to the next ES committee on this issue. I suppose, you know, is it an increasing trend, or what are the numbers across the borough saying? And I suppose essentially asking the question, are we as a council getting more requests for replacement bins?
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you, Councillor McLeod, and I'm getting nodding heads there to say yes, there will be a report brought back to that committee. Okay, thank you. Content to move on now, members? Okay, thank you. So item 5.2, minutes of the Planning and Regularly Services Committee. Alderman Barr, are you propose? Can you propose? Yes. Yeah, can you just indicate? I'm told I'm not allowed to have a nodding head.
Wrong one.
Twins.
Yeah, so proposed.
Happy to second, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Members, I don't see any lights on. Is there any matters arising? Content to move on? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 5.3. Okay, so this was a peculiar one for members that was in attendance of the Leisure Services Committee. Can I just ask for Councillor Ian Wilson to propose and Councillor O'Kane to second? Now, all you're doing is seconding the accuracy of the minutes at this stage.
Happy to propose accordingly, Lord Mayor. Yes, and apologies for the technical difficulties, and thanks to our IT team, we tried to resolve it, but unfortunately without success. Thank you.
I'm happy to second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And members, just in case you're wondering, we'll be picking up later under agenda item 6 for decision, and also then additionally under confidential for the rest of that particular committee. So moving on, we're content with that, members? Yes, all in agreement? Okay, thank you. So we're moving on now to agenda item number 4, economic development. Councillor Kevin Savage, yes, your light's on, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm happy to propose we adopt the minutes.
Happy to second.
Alderman Baxter, you've indicated.
Yeah, happy with accuracy of the minutes, Lord Mayor, if you want to agree that. I just have a matter of reason, if possible. Yep. It's under EDR 66-2023, and it's in relation to the centenary stones. Now, I know the committee have made a recommendation to council, but I'm just not sure that it's the right recommendation, and I don't like to do this, but I want to look at it again and have the council consider the decision that we made. And just simply propose, Lord Mayor, that I'm sure the members have read the minutes and read the discussions that took place in terms of what was agreed, and I don't think it's probably the right way forward. So I just want to propose that we go ahead with option 2, and I'd ask members to reconsider, because I think option 2, as was said at the committee, is the cleanest way to do this. This has been in discussions for some 3 years now, and it'll be good to see the next stage done. But I think option 2 is the only way, probably, to move it forward. And within that recommendation, that we afford officers a bit of flexibility within the areas, within the towns and villages of whereabouts the placing of the stones actually goes. But at least we can maybe do that through the working group, for example. If that's in order, Lord Mayor, I propose to reconsider and go with option 2.
Alderman Barry, is yours in the same? Yes, okay.
Thank you, Madam Lord Mayor. I would just like to second Alderman Baxter's proposal.
Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not coming in to third that proposal. As mentioned at committee, there's difficulties with option 2, even as outlined by officers. There will be equality impacts regarding option 2. As been said, it's been spoken about for a long time. I think officers' recommendation at committee option 4 about the 3 civic sites, and then put it out for to the community to select the rest of the sites, seems to be the appropriate option. I would have been minded to propose that option, but as you know, you're not allowed to have multiple proposals on the table, so we'll see how this one goes. But just to say that I wouldn't agree with Councillor Baxter, and we'll see how this unfolds.
Okay. Members, I sense we're not in agreement then, just based on what Councillor Lavery has said. So it was agreed within the minutes of option 3. Councillor Baxter has proposed, seconded by Alderman Barry, option 2. So I'm assuming we're not in agreement. No, we're not. Okay, members, right? Recorded vote. Okay. Yep. So members, I'm going to try to do this without coming back to me to call you in, because we've only got 2. Am I content to do that without me calling everybody in, looking at the screen? I need to go. Okay, members, my apologies. I need to go through me and call each one in. Councillor Alexander, yes, no, or abstain?
No.
Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Barr,
Yes.
Alderman Baxter,
Yes.
Alderman Berry,
Yes.
Alderman Burns,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Donnelly,
Neil, no.
Councillor Paul Duffy.
Right.
Sorry, Paul.
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Sarah Duffy,
No.
Councillor Evans,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Ferguson,
No, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Greenfield,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Hockey,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Hockeyan,
No.
Councillor Johnston,
No, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Kennedy,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Lavery,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Mackle,
No, no, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Ashley Mallon,
No, Lord Mayor.
oh. Sorry, Councillor Jude Mallon,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor McCartan,
No.
Councillor McClelland,
Yes.
Councillor McConville Walker,
No, Lord Mayor.
okay. Councillor McElrath,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Moutry,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Moutry,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Mulholland,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Nelson, are you online? Yeah, you just unmute and vote.
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor O'Dowd.
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor O'Hanlon, again, can you unmute and just vote?
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor O'Kane,
No, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Rankin,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Radcliffe,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
okay, and Councillor Kevin Savage,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Kyle Savage,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
okay, Councillor Wilson,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
getting there, folks. Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor McGill,
No, Lord Mayor.
and finally myself, yes. Okay. Sorry. Okay, members, so it's voting total is yes is 20 and no is no, and my understanding is I have the casting vote and I vote yes. So the vote is that, and it's a recorded vote, yes. So I'm going to call out those that voted no. First of all was Councillor Alexander, Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Paul Duffy, Councillor Sarah Duffy, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Hockey, Councillor Hockeyan, Councillor Johnston, Councillor Lavery, Councillor Mackle, Councillor Ashley Mallon, Councillor Jude Mallon, Councillor McCartan, Councillor McConville Walker, Councillor Nelson, Councillor O'Dowd, Councillor O'Hanlon, Councillor O'Kane, Councillor Kevin Savage, and Deputy Lord Mayor Councillor McGowan. Those that voted yes was Councillor Armstrong, Alderman Barr, Alderman Baxter, Alderman Berry, Alderman Burns, Councillor Evans, Alderman Greenfield, Councillor Hare, Alderman Kennedy, Councillor McClelland, Councillor McElrath, Alderman Moutry, Councillor Moutry, Councillor Mulholland, Alderman Rankin, Councillor Radcliffe, Councillor Kyle Savage, Alderman Wilson, Councillor Ian Wilson, Lord Mayor, and then again I had the casting vote, so I voted twice. Okay, members, so that's option 2 then, that has been agreed. Anyone else, any more comments before we move on? Alderman Barr.
Thank you, Madam Lord Mayor. It's regarding the collaborative approach to addressing antisocial behaviour. It's regarding the collaborative approach to addressing antisocial behaviour. It's absolutely fantastic that we're getting all these different groups set up, but I believe that they should also intertwine with the councillors, because we're the ones who are getting the phone calls on a Saturday night, on a Friday night regarding antisocial behaviour. So my proposal would be that we form part of that is the DEA members for each area can also be involved, or at least invited to those working groups. Because as I said, we're the ones that are getting it in the neck from members of the public regarding antisocial behaviour. So my proposing that DEA members are invited to those collaborative meetings, thank you. Okay. Or if that's not possible, then we set up our own, thank you.
Alderman Barr, just if you could give us clarity as to where that is on the minutes, because we're not sure where that's being picked up from.
ADR 67, don't have my glasses, thank you, Alderman.
Alderman Barr, I'll come back to you and I'll take from Alderman Burns and then I'll come back to you on that one, okay?
It's the same item, Lord Mayor. I'm going to second that, just the councillor or Alderman Barr's proposal. I think it's a good idea that we are the ones who get all the phone calls at the weekend and things like that. So I think it would be good to be involved. Thank you.
Okay, members, there's been a proposal and a seconder. Do you need clarity on what the proposal was, Carol? All good. Okay, members, anyone in disagreement with that? No? Okay, so we're all in agreement with that. Alderman Barr and Alderman Burns. Okay, thank you. Members, any other items before we move on? Okay, thank you for that. And agenda item is 5.5. So Councillor Mackle and Councillor Kyle Moutry, could you possibly, for the accuracy of minutes? Thank you. Just call you in.
Yes, Lord Mayor, I propose the minutes.
Happy to second, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Moutry, did you have your light on? Or did I? No, Alderman Moutry. Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor, for bringing me in. Can I make reference to GRS 115, which was an item of information at the committee, and that is the Customer Care Action Plan. I missed the opportunity, I think probably to the speedy chairing of the meeting by Councillor Mackle, but I'm going to take my opportunity now. I went through this plan in detail beforehand, and it causes me a lot of concerns. I mean, most of the targets failed to have been hit, and a lot of the reasoning given is around the fact that there's no designated customer relations officer and other staff vacancies. Now, some of the very most basic stuff hasn't been attended to within this report, and this is about front facing with the customers that use our facilities across the borough. And mind you, you can fairly resonate with them whenever you find people are coming to you in relation to the facility we have across the road here and they can't get anybody to answer the phone. And that's a continual issue all the time. But can I ask, are the positions now filled, or when are they going to be filled, and when is this going to be a priority for the ratepayers in this borough?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alderman Moutry. Yes, I suppose at the point in time that report was written, it was at the end of year. So it was at the end of the financial year. And since that, a number of these actions have moved on. I think there's also an issue around until you have completely finished off on the actions, they remain as a red as opposed to moving into green. So most of those were substantively moved forward. But I'm content to pick up individual issues with you separately if that would be helpful after today. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Content with that, Alderman Moutry? Okay, folks. I don't see any other lights on, so we're happy enough to move on. Members, agenda item 5.6. I just need a proposer and a seconder. There was actually no recommendations in this, so it's just for the accuracy of the minutes, and that's Alderman Barr and Alderman Kennedy. You could indicate.
So proposed, Madam Lord Mayor.
I'll be the second, Lord Mayor.
All right, thank you, members. And moving on then to agenda item 5.7, could I call on Alderman Greenfield and Councillor Hockey?
So proposed, Lord Mayor.
Happy to second, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, members. And Councillor Alexander, you wish to raise an item? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just on the accuracy of the minutes, my attendance has not been noted on the minutes. I was in attendance online.
We'll get that rectified. Councillor Alexander, thank you. Alderman Greenfield, your light's on again. Are you wanting to come in? Yep, okay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And just it is around the attendance at the meeting. If I could just maybe put out to those members who are on that committee. We were only myself and the vice chair were actually in the chamber for that meeting. We had a new lay rep here who came in. So it's not a big committee, and it doesn't meet that often. But I know that people have different commitments. But if we could get some more folks to maybe come into the chamber for the next one, I definitely think would help the flow of the meeting, especially for a new lay rep. So just to encourage those that are on the committee, if they could join myself and the vice chair, who were the only ones in the chamber that night. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, well noted, Alderman Greenfield. Okay, thank you. Members, any other issues raised? Content to move on? Okay, yeah, thank you. All right, agenda item 6 then, Chief Executive's report, and the first item for decision was actually Neil's going to present this. I'm assuming, Neil, are you in the chamber or online? Not sure where you are tonight. Oh, he's online. Okay. Neil, I'm going to call you in. We did make a start on this one, and that's whenever we had technical difficulties. So it's over to you again.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, members. In November 2020, Council approved the public consultation of the draft change in places policy. The final policy was drafted and attached as Appendix 1 for approval. It's now recommended that members approve the change in places policy. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that, Neil. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to propose that Councillor Julie Flaherty has worked quite hard with some of the members and the officers to make sure that that policy has came through. So I'm quite happy to propose it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Kyle Savage.
Happy to second, Madam Lord Mayor.
Okay. Right, thank you, members. 6.2 then, Charlene's going to take us through this one.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. You will have in front of you an updated service level agreement for local government resilience. This is an SLA between this council and the other 10 councils, as we are the employer council for the service. This arrangement has been in place since 2019. However, some amendments have been made to the SLA. That's in order to enhance and strengthen the agreement for us as the host council. The SLA ensures greater clarity on the role of the resilience team, and it ensures that emergency preparedness is enhanced and optimised. There is also protection around funding cover to council, and members are asked to note the amendments to the SLA and provide approval for the Chief Executive to sign the updated SLA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charlene. And members, can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? It really isn't that complex. Thank you, Councillor Alexander, and thank you, Councillor Evans. Thank you very much. Members, agenda item number 7 may not be as difficult. It's just a proposer and a seconder for the schedule of documents requiring corporate seal. 7.1 to 7.5, can we propose and second those on block? Thank you, Councillor Herr. Councillor Evans, thank you. It's great being on just in my line shot. Members, thank you for that. And we're going now to go into confidential business. Could I have a proposer and a seconder? Would you see the amount of hands will go up now? Well, I have it under here as items go into confidential and then items under notice of motion. Just let me check, members, here. I have it on the minutes here. Sorry, members, that's just a mirror. So, Ryan, have a seat. My apologies. It was on the wee set of minutes here. It's just got a wee bit confused here. Okay, no problem at all. Right, notice of motion 8.1, and I will hand over now to Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Tonight, I'm asking my colleagues in the chamber to support my motion on the reprioritisation of the A1 road safety upgrades. As you will all be aware, in a recent letter to this chamber, we were informed of a reprioritisation of the Phase 2 upgrades by the Department for Infrastructure. The public have waited much too long on this project to be completed. The A1 is the main Belfast to Dublin economic corridor, carrying an average 40,000 cars a day. And between 2002 and 2019, there have been 661 collisions and 41 people killed. The need for road safety improvements has never been greater. A public inquiry was held in 2020, and the inspector of the public inquiry, Kevin Chambers, recommended that the improvement scheme be expedited as quickly as possible. He said, and I quote, "A busy roadway of such strategic importance will always be prone to the occurrence of serious accidents. But the serious and fatal accident statistics for this road show that the proposed improvements are an urgent requirement." As a result, in January 21, the then Infrastructure Minister, Nicola Mallon, announced that the Phase 2 road improvement should progress. In fact, when the Newry bypass was opened in 2010, the Phase 2 upgrades were already in planning then. But yet, 13 years later, despite the public inquiry and previous ministerial approval, we face continued delays and unfortunately a reprioritisation of this much needed road. This journey has been an emotional rollercoaster for those who have lost family and friends, and for those who passionately campaign to improve this road so that no other family has to face losing a loved one. Let's just remind ourselves of the Phase 2 safety improvements. It would see all gaps in the central reservations closed between Hillsborough and Loughbrickland, 4 new flyovers, and the prevention of right turns from more than 20 side roads. The completion of this work will save lives, and done sooner would have saved lives already lost on this stretch of road. The economic potential of this road hasn't been fully explored due to the lack of investment and vision. The department's response to the public inquiry estimated an economic return with a benefit to cost ratio of 2.1, representing a significant contribution to GVA given the high capital costs of infrastructure investment. The progression of this road would unlock economic potential for our borough and accelerate our potential as a growth corridor with good access to the A and M1. The benefits are clear: improved journey times, more importantly, safer journeys for our residents, and a direct and indirect economic boost. I would ask that my colleagues in this chamber support my motion to recognise the urgent need for infrastructure upgrades, the strong public sentiment that exists for improvements, and the public frustration at years of delay. Together, I would like us to show collective leadership on this issue and lead the local government charge to represent the views of our residents. Improved safety on this road will save lives. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Just for the accuracy of the minutes, Councillor Ferguson, would it be possible for you to email that what you've read out to Carol? But it was quite detailed and it'll be much easier for her to do the minutes. Is that okay? Thank you. Councillor Johnston, you're going to be the seconder.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Members, this motion is about ensuring we do not lose sight of the importance of road safety along one of the most significant and busiest roads in Northern Ireland. The strategic importance of the A1 cannot be overstated. It is a major cross-border corridor on this island and a key transport link for many people living in rural areas, particularly around my own area of Lagan River, with many using the road for their daily commute. Road safety should be a #1 priority for our executive and for the Department for Infrastructure. The proposed closing of gaps along the A1, the introduction of a continuous central reserve safety barrier, and the building of new grade separated junctions will undoubtedly enhance road safety along the A1. Not only that, but the proposed building of park and ride facilities will make public transport a more accessible and suitable alternative for residents within ABC and surrounding areas. This will not only lessen congestion, but also help with environmental targets. As elected representatives, we should be pressing for DFI to make the A1 a top priority rather than priority 3, as recently stated. The delays have cost lives, as many families have said repeatedly. That is why we are calling for the Phase 2 upgrades to be implemented as soon as an executive is restored and funding can be released. This is a cross-council issue that affects all of us and the constituents that we represent, and we want to see the A1 safety improvements started as soon as possible. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. And would you also forward that on to Carol too? Appreciate that. Councillor O'Hanlon, your hand was up first. If you just want to unmute.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. And I just want to support both the sentiments and the call of action in the notice of motion. For anyone else who have followed the issue, and to hear Monica Heaney and hear and read what she has said, having lost her son Carl, along with many others along that route, you can't but feel an anger and disappointment that families have to come before or come out into the public and tell of their story, and yet we still have an inability in this part of the world to get a project like this over the line. It is imperative that it happens, and it happens as soon as possible. And as I said, I'd like to support both the words and the sentiments of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. Councillor Kevin Savage.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, for letting me in there. I would like to thank both Councillor Ferguson and Johnson for bringing forward the motion. The figures mentioned by Councillor Ferguson were very stark in terms of accidents and fatalities. You know, this was raised last month, and I think we all came to the conclusion that it was very disappointing. This work is now more or less putting a long finger. And we all know how dangerous the A1 is. It's a road, as I said last month, that I try to avoid using. It's just an awful road, and the fatalities on it have, you know, at least every couple of months you're hearing of a new accident or a new death, and you know this can be preventable. So I would therefore, on behalf of our party, like to support the sentiments and the actions of the motion. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Alderman Greenfield.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And firstly, Lord Mayor, could we just want to think of the families that have lost loved ones? I'm sure it's not easy for them to hear this news recently. And Councillor Ferguson has talked about the figures since 2002, but this is certainly an issue which has preceded this council and preceded even before those days. I remember as a child us travelling down that road, and one evening a car coming out from where the halfway houses are, turning right, not going across the carriage, and actually coming up the lane that we were travelling down, and happened to skid and slide over the road. And thankfully, we avoided any serious happening, but that hasn't been the case for many on that road. So we do want to put our sympathies with them at this time. And it's something that I think it's sad to see that this progress has not been made in this project. And this is certainly something that it's not due to a lack of political will. I think all parties are agreed on that this something needs to be done on this road. So we do support this motion tonight. We want to thank those who have brought it. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Greenfield. Alderman Burns.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I certainly support this motion coming forward. I have been campaigning on this road for almost 28 years now. It has been a serious issue right from then, and we were fortunate to get the flyovers and the underpasses a number of years ago, and it did help reduce the accidents at certain junctions. I think it really is disappointing that this has been stopped for now. Maybe if there is a government up and running, we may get it reprioritized, which is something that we do need. There's 30,000-40,000 vehicles use it every day, and it's like a motorway, but unfortunately there's too many crossover points, as has been noted here. So I would certainly support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Burns. And well, there's no negativity, Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Johnston. So I'll just invite you to summarise on your just to wind up on the notice of motion, Councillor Ferguson.
No, thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the support around the chamber from Councillor O'Hanlon, Councillor Savage, Alderman Greenfield, Alderman Burns, and your respective parties. We are all in agreement that this is an extremely important issue that has been around for a very long time, and I think the collective effort from ABC Council tonight is something that I'm very proud of, and I hope that every member in this chamber can be proud of, that we can lead the way in terms of challenging the prioritisation that has been allocated to the A1 and hopefully change that prioritisation with our lobbying. So I'd like to thank you all for your support, and I'm very proud that we can walk forward together in this. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you, members, and especially Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Johnston. So members, 8.2, notice of motion, and I'm going to hand over to the proposer, Councillor McConville Walker.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'm sure you're not surprised to see this one on the minutes. It's a very timely issue. It's very, very hard to escape from the minute it's everywhere. And it's a serious concern. So I'm calling on colleagues here in the chamber tonight to support me in this motion, and that we're calling on this council to form a working group, or calling on the Local Government Association to immediately, I'll stress the word immediately there, establish a working group made up of DAERA and the representative agencies, including NIEA, Inland Fisheries and others, along with the representatives from the 4 councils that border Lough Neagh, and those other relevant agencies, including NI Water and the Public Health Agency and Food Standards Agency, in order to hold these departments and agencies accountable for the development of a time-bound and targeted strategy to address the poor water quality, and in particular the impact of the toxic green algae that's affecting Lough Neagh. That impact also is on the environment, the residents of the loch, businesses and recreational users. So I'm calling on you to support me in urging NILGA to convene the working group and strategy to address this issue. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McConville Walker. Could I also ask that you would forward those notes on to Carol? That's brilliant. Thank you. Could I call on then Councillor Jude Mallon to second the notice of motion?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In seconding this motion, I want to also air my concerns about the loch. In supplying 40% of the North's drinking water, there is grave concern about amongst the community, and whilst NI Water have reassured us that water is treated before it reaches our taps to ensure its safety, many are rightly still concerned. As a failure to the loch, this council must too bear some responsibility. Craigavon Lakes is and remains a concern of ours, something we have been raising for some years now. It is for that reason that we are also calling on officers to explore the potential of developing a strategy in partnership with DAERA, NI Water and any other relevant bodies to address the impact of blue-green algae and council-owned lakes across the borough, and to learn from the efforts being made by NI Water on Clay Lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mallon. And could I also ask you to forward on those notes? Appreciate that. Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Councillor McConville Walker and Councillor Mallon for bringing this motion to full council this evening. This is such an important issue, and it's something that honestly more people need to be talking about and that people need to be taken seriously. Situation in Lough Neagh and in the waterways around this country, quite frankly, it's nothing short of a public health crisis, and we must act swiftly to deal with the problem that we're faced with. I think we need to start by making one thing very clear as well. We refer to it as blue-green algae. It is in fact highly toxic cyanobacteria, and it's been allowed to spread at an alarming rate with no meaningful intervention. It's choking the lake that lies at the heart of this country. It's impacting our drinking water, it's killing wildlife and damaging the environment, and it's without a doubt having and will continue to have a severe impact both now and in the future. This problem has been born out of ignorance and neglect for decades, and as such will take radical steps with a collaborative effort from multiple agencies to even begin solving the problem. We cannot sit idle and hope that someone will deal with this issue any longer. As a council, we need to be proactive, we need to be in the front foot, and we need to make sure other council areas and government agencies are taking this issue seriously. We have a real opportunity here to lead by example, and I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that it's critical that an executive be restored so a national strategy can be formed, which would mean the resources and funding could be put in place to properly tackle this issue. I've spoken to campaigners, fishermen, swimmers, and constituents in the Borough, and there is deep concern that we are watching Lough Neagh die before our very own eyes. In ABC, we have a duty to make sure that people in this Borough who use our council amenities are protected and are safe. This is why last month I called for a report into the impacts of this blue-green algae on our council premises, so we as a council can better understand the issue and we can ensure that the public in our area are safe. One thing that is clear from this is that the current strategy and the current framework we have in place is not sufficient. It's just not working. Polluters carry on polluting and the problem gets worse year after year after year. We need independent regulation and we need significantly harsher fines and punishments for rule breakers. As I've already said, the existing systems and policies have proved themselves to be inadequate and not fit for purpose in resulting situation we now find ourselves in. This is why I'm seeking to also add an amendment to this motion, if Councillor McConville Walker and Councillor Mullen permit. My amendment would be as follows. This council also supports the creation of an independent environmental protection agency at such a time when the NI executive is back up and running. This independent agency would act as an independent regulator to ensure compliance with environmental law. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Alexander, there was quite a lot of wording in that amendment. Did the proposer and the seconder of the notice of motion, did you grasp what the amendment was? And are you content to accept that? Do you want it read out again, clarified? Yes, sorry.
Yes, yes, it was quite detailed, so thank you for that. But yes, just for clarification, it would be good for it to be read again, please. Sorry.
Councillor Alexander, could you try to lower your mic and speak it? You're quite low, speaking quite low. My apologies, but.
You just want the wording on the amendment? This council also supports the creation of an independent environmental protection agency at such a time when the NI executive is back up and running. This independent agency would act as an independent regulator to ensure compliance with environmental law.
Firstly, Councillor Alexander, can we have a copy of that up at the top table? Okay, and Councillor McConville Walker, are you content to accept that?
I just have one query. Can we compel the NI executive in order to do that?
Councillor Alexander, there's two, could you email that to Wendy now, please? And my understanding is the answer to that is no. Just while we're waiting for Councillor Alexander to email that to Wendy, Councillor Mullen, my understanding is that there's a few extra things that you had added on when you were seconding the, so I'm just wondering, was that supposed to be, or I'm just because it's changing the notice of motion, the wording on that, or is it, are we going to be voting tonight and agreeing to what is actually in the notice of motion submitted? Does that make sense? It was just, there was a few things added on by Councillor Mullen, so we just need clarity on that.
Just saying, so I wasn't reading the motion. Motions are mentioned in the papers.
There's no harm done, Councillor Michael. It was just the fact we were clarifying because there was a few extra things added on and we just needed to clarify that. That was all. Okay. So we've got the wording now. Members, just give us a few minutes on this, please. All right. Councillor Lavery, I see you've indicated perhaps is it on this point. It's just we're needing clarity on what Councillor Alexander is proposing on this amendment, because it's not in our gift to be able to do this, right? So I'm going to call Councillor Lavery in if it's on the same point. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and firstly, thank you to all the speakers, Councillor McConville Walker and Councillor Mallon for bringing this very important motion forward, and then Councillor Alexander for his remarks. I'm happy to second it as well, but just on the point of what we can and can't do, we can certainly lobby or encourage things, you know, with a motion on the A1. We can't create a road ourselves in this borough, or else ABC would already got the job done a long time ago. You know, we're calling for it. The Environmental Protection Agency set out a new decade, new approach, as I understand. Agreed by all parties. Sooner it's implemented, the better. And you only have to take a look at the lakes there, or the Loch Ness and so on, to see what, you know, has been mentioned, you know, by Councillor Mallon and Councillor Alexander. What we're doing now is not good enough. When we need a bit more proactive action. I think amendment just calling for, you know, that independent environmental protection agency to be set up whenever the executive's back up and running. You know, it adds to it, and if you know, if the proposer and seconder are willing to take it, and we'll see how it goes. You know, thank you.
Okay. So, Councillor McConville Walker, are you content that this is an additional paragraph added onto your notice of motion? Do you need time to consider that? Okay, members, maybe this is a good just to take. Councillor McElrath, is yours on this, or is it? Well, when you we'll call in Councillor McElrath, and that will bring sort of the debate till an end, and then we'll take away adjournment and have time. Okay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Listen, it probably comes as no surprise that across in these benches we're appalled, but what we've seen unfolding in Loch Ness over this last weeks and months. I suppose we could say that the Loch's a jewel in the crown of this council, certainly the South Shore anyway, for sure. And to see what has happened is awful, and some of us have witnessed it in person. And we've seen some of the photos and video footage and so on. What I would say as well is, as we've listened to the experts, it seems to have been the perfect storm, as it were, in terms of the weather, early season, water temperature, and the invasive mussels, the zebra mussels as well, that ironically seem to be cleaning the water, which is causing some of the problems as well. But also, suppose the nitrates has been referred to, and so on. And suppose just on that point, as far as I would be concerned, you know, in terms of agriculture, I have to say they've already made huge strides in relation to ensuring responsible practices and reducing the risk of runoff. Of course, more can be done, and the engagement of the various departments through NILGA is not something we would oppose on these benches. What I will ask, and it maybe complicates the situation, Lord Mayor, somewhat. I have one very minor amendment to add.
Councillor McElrath, we can only take one amendment at the time. Okay. I'm getting it, that's all we can deal with at the time. So members, if you're content, we're going to take a 10-minute adjournment, and then Councillor McConville Walker, you can have a chat with Councillor Alexander. Okay, members, and those that are zooming in, we're just going to take a short amendment. All right, so. McConville Walker. Councillor McConville Walker, are you content to accept the amendment?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I'm happy to accept the amendment.
That's great. Thank you for that. Okay, members, now that has become the new substantive motion. All right. But we also, and are we all agreed with that? We're not. Okay, right. We're not. I know that Councillor McElrath wants to come in with another amendment, but is that the, do you not agree with this amendment? Okay. All right, my apologies then, members. We need to go to a vote on this. All right. So we're now voting on the amendment to the motion. Okay. So do you want me to read it out, members, what it is we are voting?
It's all right.
All right, we're good.
It's the two. So that's the new one.
Okay, members, Councillor Alexander, yes, no, or abstain? Oh, sorry, yes, of course, Councillor Baxter.
Thanks. Can I just clarify, because the original proposer has accepted that amendment, so it's now substantive motion, so we're actually voting on the motion now. Isn't that right? If they've accepted that, it's now a substantive motion, and the proposer hasn't wound up on it either. So it becomes a substantive motion. So that we're against the amendment, but if it's a substantive motion they've agreed to, we're actually voting on the new motion then. Just to clarify that, Barbara.
Okay, members, then Councillor Alexander, yes, no, or abstain? Okay, we're voting on the motion, which includes your so basically we're voting on Sinn Féin's original notice of motion plus your amendment. So yes, no, or abstain. Okay.
Think 1913.
Okay. Go on ahead, Councillor Mack. Members, this was proposed. It wasn't agreed. I'm confused now, members.
Lord Mayor, I think it's agreed, so it's now the substantive motion. So we're still debating that motion. So, and I know the proposer hasn't wound that motion even. Or if there's any other speakers on this motion, I don't think we need to vote on it as yet until it's wound up on.
Yeah, Councillor Baxter, there was the notice of motion. It was then put to about the amendment, and we're saying we don't agree with the notice of motion holder agreed to the amendment, okay, and that's what became the new substantive motion. Then what we were going to do was we were going to take Councillor McElrath's what he wanted, but we had to put one amendment to vote first. Okay. Now, members, please be aware that we were supposed to be in the middle of a vote here, so this is actually really undercut protocol. So I am just going ahead now with Councillor Armstrong. What is your vote on this? Yeah.
No, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Barr.
Based on him not entirely sure what I'm actually voting on, Madam Lord Mayor. I'm going to abstain.
Alderman Baxter,
No.
No, Madam Lord Mayor.
Alderman Burns,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Donnelly,
Oh, yes.
Councillor Paul Duffy,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Sarah Duffy,
Yes.
Councillor Evans,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Ferguson,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Greenfield,
No, Lord Mayor.
okay, Councillor Hare,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Hockey,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Hockeyan,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Johnston,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Kennedy,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Lavery,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Mackle, thank you.
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Ashley Mallon,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
okay. Councillor Jude Mallon,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor McCartan, Councillor McClelland,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor McConville Walker,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor McElrath,
No, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Moutry,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Moutry,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Mulholland,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Nelson,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor O'Dowd,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor O'Hanlon,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor O'Keehan,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Rankin,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Radcliffe,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Kevin Savage,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Kyle Savage,
No, Lord Mayor.
Alderman Wilson,
No, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Wilson,
No, Lord Mayor.
Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor McGowan,
Yes, Lord Mayor.
and myself, no. Many thanks. Okay, just a second or two, members, do we count? Okay, members, sorry. So those that voted yes is 20, 1 abstention and 19 noes. So the amended notice substantive motion has now passed. Okay, is that clear? Thank you. Any other comments on this notice of motion? Nothing. Okay. Councillor McConville Walker, I'll hand over to yourself then to summarise.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll make this quick. I'm just noticing time's ticking on. It was just really to thank you for, thank you very much to my Alliance colleague here beside me for your detailed contribution. And I echo the sentiments of Councillor Alexander and of Councillor McElrath, who also pointed out how dire the situation is and pointed to the urgency of addressing this issue. And just to say thank you for your support. I think everyone's generally on the same page with it, that it is an issue that needs to be addressed. So thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, members. All right. Members, we're now going, if I can ask a proposer and a seconder to go into committee to consider the confidential items of business. And I have a proposer. Thank you, Councillor Kevin Savage and Councillor Mackle. Thank you. ICT, if you would just let me know when the live feed has been turned off, please. Please. Thank you, ICT, and members. Before you pack up with one more item of relevant business under AOB, and it's over to Councillor McClelland. Thank you.
Yes, Lord Mayor, thank you for taking this item of AOB, and members be assured I will be brief given the lateness of the hour. The issue that I raised concerns the provision of electric vehicle charging points within the borough. As members will know, this council is a partner council within East Border region, and EBR is currently the lead partner along with other local authorities in Scotland and the Republic of Ireland in an initiative which is currently rolling out new electric vehicle charging points throughout the regions mentioned. Our ABC Council area should have been the recipient of a number of new charging points. Sadly, a lack of electricity grid capacity within our council area has resulted in our borough getting no new points under this new initiative. And I would have to say that despite the valiant efforts of our council officers, and I would pay tribute to all that they have done behind the scenes on this, it just wasn't possible in terms of the capacity that is within the grid in our borough. Reputationally, Lord Mayor, this looks poor, and I suppose my ask is that a meeting at the highest level between council and NIE, or indeed whoever is responsible for the electricity capacity, is convened, is called for, to essentially make sure that such a scenario as this never happens again, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, members, that concludes business. Thank you, and safe home, everyone.